Facebook. So happy to be here this evening. We're just going to just all wave, all say hello, because I know that it may take a few moments for people to start logging in or logging on. But I say we, because I'm speaking for everybody, but everybody else is going to express their excitement as well. We are super excited to be having this conversation, kaleidoscopic conversations. And this evening, we're going to be talking about fostering healthy discourse and conversation. So essentially, not all the time being part of an echo chamber of what you say is what everybody agrees with, but how can we disagree in a healthy manner? I am joined by four wonderful individuals who will introduce themselves. As you all are starting to log in, I hope that you have questions. If you don't have questions, come up with some questions because we really want to hear from you. I will be checking the chat throughout. And yeah, so actually, if you're here now or later, just type in the chat, say hello. Don't be afraid. We'll say hello back. So to introduce myself, my name is Lepore Lindsay. I am an inspirational speaker, but also a workshop facilitator. I work in learning and development, and I just really love having different conversations and exploring it. And this is really one conversation that I feel like is needed, especially within the age of social media. And so now we're going to go around and allow everyone else to kind of briefly introduce themselves, and then we're going to get this discussion started. Matthew, I see you first on my end, so we'll start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good evening. My name is Matthew Mangiapane. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in New York. I have a private practice where I see individuals, couples, and families, and I also work for a mental health housing agency where I oversee a program that houses formerly homeless veterans with a mental health diagnosis. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Matthew. Gia, I see you next.
Okie dokie. Howdy, everybody. Good evening and almost happy Friday. It's almost, we're so close. Thank goodness. This week's been a whirlwind. I am a talent development training specialist with Smithfield Foods. Got my start in mental health services myself. Matthew working at a psychiatric hospital, so it's awesome sauce to have somebody else in healthcare on the call. Really passionate about all things coaching and helping guide people to be the best versions of themselves. So that's why I do what I do. And I've known Lepore for quite some time, so I'm happy to be here. And nice to meet y'all.
All right, we have Lee next.
Hello, everyone. My name's Lee Mooring, and I'm a military retiree, and my company now is all about one, and we help people reach their potential. And we do this through coaching, consulting, and we do Christian theater productions. So I am super excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
All right, and Denicia, last but not least.
Hey, I'm Denicia Hilton Harper with Hilton Holistic Health and Wellness, where I'm actually an authentic leadership and holistic well-being consultant, creating these playful spaces for those uber-driven, multi-passionate, introverted empaths. I know y'all. And where we get to create a space for you to actually see that you could just really lead authentically in all areas of your life, and in a place where most tend to overdo it for other people or the lines are blurred. I get to show you how you can actually use your own body to give you insight into just what is your leadership style. So you can shine with your perfect magic glitter.
Love it. Love it. Thank you all so much. Thank you all. And I forgot to mention that this is just the first of 3 mini series that we're going to be doing. Same time today, next Thursday, and the 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to have these conversations on different topics. But I'll cover that a little bit more towards the end. So we're going to get straight into it. I have my hosting cap on. Okay, so we're talking about healthy discourse and conversations. In other words, how can we disagree in a healthy way? So I'm going to let y'all just kind of, in no particular order, let's talk about this a little bit. And so I'm curious, have you all seen polarization in conversations, essentially where there's all agreement versus disagreement? And how have you seen that in its impact on the workplace? I see some head nods, but y'all take it away. not too quickly.
Okay, I'll break the ice if that's okay. I'll break the ice. I used to work for the U.S. Navy as a contractor, and I was a life skills educator. That's what they called Lapora and I many moons ago. And I can't tell you how many times I would go to commands, and it really just depended on the upper leadership and their ideologies on leadership, emotional intelligence, work life balance. I think that's always a huge topic wherever you go. But I mean, if they said a certain thing, that was the law. There was no conversation, which I think we can all attest to. We've got an interesting work dynamic these days because we have so many generations in the workforce right now, and they're all very different in how they function. So I think when it comes to that healthy discourse, I'm starting to see that now in my current workplace, but I know even whenever I left my position with the Navy, it was hard to get upper management to listen to their younger sailors and say, hey, they need some help. Like, this is not what they want. You know, I'm sure, Lee, you probably have some stories yourself. So it's just one of those things that it's a problem no matter where you are. And I think that's an important thing to highlight. So there you go.
That's good. Thank you, Gia.
You know, it's interesting. If I could jump in now, it's. Thank you for mentioning that. My background is in equal opportunity in the military, and one of our jobs was to do climate assessments for organizations, and we saw this very thing where you had leadership that was very. Let me say this: the climate in the organization was much better when leadership was willing to receive what the younger folks had to say. And in all the assessments we did, it came down to two main things: trust and communication. And what would happen, the advice I would give everybody on this when we would go out and do these assessments is that it's all about those conversations that you have. It's not about talking about the job, but it's about going up to a junior person or anyone and just saying, how was your weekend? How was your weekend? What did you do? Did you go fishing? Did you go bowling? What did you do? And then take that small nugget that you receive from them and bring it up the next time. Oh, wow, you like to go bowling. Okay. Yeah, you went but it's that type of engagement that's going to build trust, that's going to better the communication. And you're going to break down so many different barriers, especially when you spoke about different generations. That's the problem. Generations are not talking. But if you break it down and just ask some simple questions, you can have a much healthier climate, a much healthier organization.
Mm. You brought up a really good point, Lee. Go ahead, Denicia.
Oh, you go ahead, Lapora. I'll go after you.
Oh, well, you brought up a really good point in regards to as far as with that trust factor. And I really feel like that's how healthy discourse can happen. Because if you trust somebody and there's trust in that communication, then people are more willing to be open to expressing their true viewpoints versus just remaining within that echo chamber where they could potentially feel like they could be attacked if they express anything outside of that. But I just wanted to throw that in there. Denicia.
I am glad I went after you then. So because the trust thing, yeah, that's there, right? Like Lee, trust and communication, get it. But then I think too, it's this: you have to explore what trust means and and the trust isn't just going to be verbal, right? Like and especially across so many generations being in the workplace. And I mean, this is also going to apply at home and in social groups as well, because you'll hear it. It's all the same thing. It's just in a different place. Is that like sometimes the communication is self-serving. Sometimes it is. It is. So if the sooner I feel like the sooner the people understand that when you're communicating, you're self-serving, like it's just the way that you're going to be, because you're looking at people like, what is it that they're going to be able to do for me, and how is that going to change my life, right? And so if you come from that, if you kind of have that understanding, I know a lot of people say, well, it's not about you. Actually, it is. Because if you really think about it, like us as whole system beings, we're looking for our own survival. And so we're going to be looking at that in communication. And so if we're looking to be, if we're going to be in these relationships with other people and we're having these conversations and whatnot, it's what are those other things that we could be doing that could foster trust? And that is if it simply is just kind of being there and allowing someone to say something without interrupting them, or with allow them to say something without saying, I've been seeing this a lot, right? Like the post of this just happened recently, y'all. I'm in Florida, and so we're experiencing like this really big weird storm, which I think the whole east of the country is right now too. And so all these high winds, right? So I see posts and it's like, these kids, they called off school. Well, we just had to go into the hallway and put our heads down, right? Like, and so when you continue to say stories like that, that literally have this connotation of, you got it so easy, think about what I had to do, kind of thing, that it creates that comparisonville that is, in a way, it's not even like, it's a whole different other vibe if you're saying it to share what your experience was like, versus the shaming that happens out of that, right? So then tell me, then who is going to want to come and talk to you later? Right? Like, they don't trust that you even are going to honor and respect that this is their life experience, because that one instance in your life seems like it's harder than what they're experiencing, but you have no idea what other aspects of their life is like, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking about.
From Yeah, no, I mean, everything. Everybody's already brought up such great points, and I think from my own experiences, even seeing how a culture in the workplace, how communication, the environment in general is with everybody there, and coming in as the new person when you're getting into a new program, it becomes such a learning experience for everybody involved. I've Not to get into too much of my own personal stuff, but I've taken over a couple programs in the agency that I work at over time, and coming into environments that are so different than what I'm used to, and trying to build up this communication, this trust that everybody all hopes that we have when we're going to work or when we're speaking with others or connecting with others. And even seeing the reaction that the previous employees or staff members have to a change in environment like that can be almost jarring for some people. Suddenly my door is open all the time and you can come and ask me questions anytime, but they didn't have that with the previous supervisor, or they've never had that before, or they don't know how to handle that. And as you're building things up and you're building that trust, it really, for me, very much comes down to that communication. And I think that's something that not everybody is used to, especially when you have people coming in, let's say, straight from a graduate program into the workplace. It's something wholly new to them. They're used to school, the school setting. Now they have a boss. Now they have peers. How do you approach your boss when you have a problem? How do you ask your peers questions when something's going on? And there's so much to navigate, and sometimes even just opening that door, just a tiny little crack, can really make all the difference in the long run.
Right. Love that. You know, Denicia brought up a point in regards to, as far as what does trust even mean? And it actually, I'm going to skip around a little bit because it brings up a question that I had. So we're in communication. You know, there's a lot of us being authentic, right? But at the same time, there is empathy that's needed in order to develop that. So my question for you all is, and by the way, if anybody's watching, please feel free to type your questions in the chat pod. I don't have any yet, but if you have some, we'll be sure to ask. But when you communicate and when you're trying to have that healthy discourse, so you have a disagreement, are you communicating in order to be heard, as far as being clear about your point, or are you communicating in order to ensure that the other person understands? Or is there even a difference? But that's the question that I'll kind of present to you all.
If I could answer real quick, I think that's interesting. If we could go back and then I come forward again with what Denicia said, I think that when she said, about no interruptions, I so wanted to say amen, but I didn't want to interrupt her. But I thought that was such a great point, because folks, what I've experienced is that they speak to win the conversation. And also you mentioned is, are they listening? Listening is a skill that you have to practice. You have to develop it. I know that we would listen to people come in and file complaints, and they would just talk forever. And that not interrupting, that's a skill set that not everybody has. Most people, they listen so that they can respond. And what I've always noticed is that when I'm having a conversation, I can tell by the first couple words out of the person's mouth after I'm finished. Are they engaged? Do they repeat some things that I've said, like, hey, I understand this point that you made about no interruptions and winning the conversation was just such and such? Or do they just go straight into their point of view so that they can win the conversation? I'm sorry, I don't think I answered the question. I just wanted to make that point. I'm sorry. My bad. What was the question again? Sorry. I didn't mean to take us off track.
I thought it was cool though that the fact that you brought up win is what got my attention, right? Like and I'm hearing this common theme of military here too. So like that's really interesting because I wrote down here competition and conversation. And is that happening? So it's almost like a self-assessment for you as you engage in conversations, right? Have you kind of developed, or do you have a competition going on subconsciously? And yeah, are you seeking to win? And win at what? Like for some people, and this is where I find that the conversations get really interesting when I really listen and third ear listen, is sometimes it's not even about what they're saying. It is the other things, such as they may not have a place that they could talk. They may not have a place where they might feel validated. Like sometimes it's not even agreement, it's validation. Right? Like, so it's even that to me is what can be offered in service to others, where it isn't really about what they're saying at all, but it's those other things that you may or may not even know on consciously, because it may, depending on when you meet them, right? Like, and some people it's over time. For some people, they're like, I don't even know why I told you that. I just met you. But like, so it runs the gamut, right? So I feel like as we explore and as we teach others, that it's understanding like time can be irrelevant. Some people just have that energy of just trust in people, feel it. And then for those that it doesn't happen, could it just be you? Like that is authentically you? Or is it actually something else so that's going to involve self-assessment, like you're shutting off for whatever reason and people aren't wanting to come to you? And it could be something personal within your life, or it could be, people's past experience with you as well. So I think it's like kind of also seeing the two sides, three sides really, A, B, and then C, of what's really going on.
It's very easy to fall into that habit of almost getting stuck in your own head trying to formulate your response to somebody, especially if it's something they're really bringing to you that you want to help them out with, or you want to do something to guide them in the right direction. And I'm sure we've all experienced that, where you're in your own head kind of thinking, well, okay, what can I say to this person? And you'll miss the forest for the trees. Like you both just said, you're not necessarily listening, because you may think you are, but a part of you is still, a little back of your brain is like trying to formulate a response, and you're not necessarily hearing or listening. And sometimes things get lost. And that's a good thing to try to check yourself in those moments. And as you both have said too, it's a good learning experience, excuse me, for the person that you're speaking with, recognizing your own fault in that particular situation, and let's work on that together. Let me show you how you can do something similar. Let's refocus a little bit. And something we all, I'm sure, could practice. I certainly could.
Can I say something real quick? Just because Matthew said this. You were saying, what can I say? Like, people, like you're thinking, like, what can I say to this person as they possibly are talking to? I want to offer too that sometimes we don't have to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it's that whole space, like the energetic, just being there, and you don't have to say a word. But because of you just being there, that meant a lot.
It's okay to be comfortable with silence. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also in line, you mentioned one thing that I thought was so important, that I call it the my fish is bigger issue, where we can't, like Matt talked about, or Matthew talked about, how can we encourage people? But sometimes folks aren't in it to encourage. They're just there to say, hey, you say, what, I got a job as, making, I don't know, 60,000 a year. They'll be like, oh, okay, that's great. But I just got a new job making 80,000. It's not about that. It's about just listening, just being there for the person and receiving that. But I think that, like we talked about, people having those ulterior motives of that selfishness. And I love the point that you said, that there are people that don't necessarily have a place to speak. So when they get into an environment, when they do have the opportunity to speak, they kind of, I hate to say, they just kind of just talk and talk and talk, but they do, but it's about understanding that person. Like you said, that's so important. If we get to know the person and understand them, then, instead of us sitting there just angry, like, why doesn't this person stop? You can understand, because we may have all been in that situation at one time. And that leads back to the empathy that we talked about earlier.
Is it okay if I interject?
Yeah.
Okay. So many good points. And one of the things that I think about, because obviously everybody here on the call, we've all been a kind of a coaching environment for quite some time, it sounds like. I don't know you guys too well, but definitely feel very comfortable in what we're all talking about. But one of the things that we've been talking at my company is, going back to what you were saying, not knowing what to say when certain things come up. That's the life of a manager. Sometimes it's the life of the coworker. And so one of the classes we teach at Smithfield is emotional intelligence, which I love. It's a great class. And those conversations constantly get brought up. And of course, I can speak from my experience, healthcare, or sailors coming to me with like marital problem, the whole array of whatever could go wrong. I have trained folks to thinking we're all coaches at the end of the day. We all have the ability to change someone's day for the better. And again, you said silence. I wish I could be comfortable with silence. I guess I have anxiety. I don't know. I'm working on it myself. Lepore knows already. So I'm a talker, but I just, it's so important for people to feel and understand the gravity that they have just being there for somebody. And they don't have to say anything. They could, I mean, sometimes I have been baffled with what a client says, and I'm like, I'm here for you. What do you want me to do? Who do you want me to call? And I mean, I am not the I'm calling Matt because Matt is a licensed clinician. She is not, whatever it may be, using those resources. But I think it's interesting, we go on LinkedIn so many times. And of course, I looked at your profiles prior to this and I was like, these seem like awesome people. You got to do the dirt. Come on, y'all. Let's be real. And it's always so nice to see people that are so energetic about what they do. Like, obviously, all of us love working with people. And we're seeing a gravitation, at least in the workforce, where it's people focused for the first time in a long time in major scales. And it doesn't matter what, workforce you're in. So I think that the enablement conversation, and I know we do this on a regular basis, but it's something that I hope to see more in the workforce. And right now I'm in corporate. I got a lot of thoughts on corporate. Most of the memes are very true. I'll put that out there. We've got some work to do in terms of how we communicate. And like you said, you brought up that trigger word, trust. It's not easy, my friends. And the days of somebody saying, you have my trust until you lose it, those days are slowly going away. You have to earn my trust. And good Lord, if you lose it, good luck. So I think it's kind of interesting to see people understand that, the power behind their words is so heavy, and it could make or break somebody's day or even complete situation. There have been times where I've said, I'm busy, like I can't stop. I'm running to another meeting across campus. I got to go. and that guilt is there. But you can always check in with people. You can always control the after. I think that's the important thing. If you have discourse in the workplace or anywhere, you can always control the after. We all are emotional. We're humans. We're animals at nature. So just something to think on.
Love it. Yeah.
So Gia, oh my gosh, something that you said. Which Matthew, I see a cutie back there, so I kind of want to be like, hey, but
he blends into the couch too.
Right. So but what it was, Gia, was like you pointed it out. It's asking people sometimes when we're trying to figure out what are we gonna say, blah blah blah, and we just be quiet. What you pointed out was like just asking them, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And I think too that's a part of the training of emotional intelligence, of communication, all of that jazz, right? Like it's not just the I'm going to sit here and tell you everything, but it's also what's behind it, right? Like why, like what is it that you need? And some may not even know it because like I said, we're all trying to just like thrive and just kind of go in the world. And so some people are actually not able to communicate what they need, but you can kind of pick up some nuances and things like that. And then other times they are. They're able to say specifically like this is exactly it. And I think that can be behind the disagreements when it's so polarized. Like what is it that you're needing? Well, I just want to see that this company is actually listening to me. Like they might be getting loud because that behavior is to actually try to make sure that somebody sees that they're there and they're offering value in that workplace. They're trying to save their position or something, right? And so that's the behavior that's coming out, but behind it is that. And I think they would have to be able to turn inward and to trust themselves and to be aware of themselves that that is what could be their motivator.
Yeah, and it's not easy to find that voice. Like I don't know about y'all. I consider myself a very direct communicator. If somebody bothers me, I don't mind having a conversation. But there are so many people that I've worked with and they've been like, how do you do that? Sometimes it's just personality. I mean, there are just some people that are really comfortable, but the quiet folks that I work with, one of my business partners that I work with on a regular basis, IT, all introverts for the most part. There are some class clowns that are there. But those introverts, they have great ideas. They don't want to bring it up. They don't think it's worth, sharing. And it's like, no, you need to tell your director. You got a problem with somebody, as a vendor, like actually not being helpful. Let's not keep wasting money, like let's find somebody else that's worth working with. So that voice, I mean, it's easier said than done, but definitely if you got a support system, I think it makes it easier, right? Because we keep talking about creating this safe space for our clients, our friends and family. But that's not always a given, right? Matthew, you brought up that the person before you was sounds so pleasant. So now your clients are like, whoa, let's test this guy out, and it stinks being that way, So definitely, once you do find your voice, oh, it's golden. But so many of us, then we talk about, I know in a later episode, I won't jump the gun, Lepora, don't get mad at me, about imposter syndrome. So, I mean, we could continue that on at a later date. But yeah, I love everything you said.
So good. The one thing too, and I know our time is getting short, so if you have those questions, put them in the chat. But one thing I hear consistently, that theme as well, is I hear as far as a communicator, we need to take action, but we also need to kind of make it clear between ourselves and whoever it is that we're speaking to about what we want out of that conversation. And one thing that I know, like my kids aren't in the workplace, but one thing that typically when they have an issue or have a problem or they're just getting really like agitated, something that I'll ask is, are you telling me this because you want me to listen? Are you telling me this because you want my advice? Or are you telling me this because you want me to do something about it? Now, as talking, adults to adults, that may need to change slightly, but the thing is that we at least offer those different options of what's available. But at the same time, I'm also offering what I can offer as the other part of that communicator. So I'm saying, here, I can just sit here and just be quiet if that's what you need, but I can also give advice depending on what that situation is. But I can also, help you to take action, because I'm not going to take action for, another adult, but, for a kid, it's different. But anyways, I said that to say that that's what I'm getting from everything that you all are sharing, is that I feel like taking action is a really big part. Whatever part we play in that communication, taking action is a big part as well. So we're reaching our time here, and we don't have any questions. So I want to be true to that time, but I would like to allow each of you, if there is a, number one, be sure to put your information in the chat, because it should go to both Facebook and LinkedIn. But if you have other handles you want to place, please feel free to place them as well. But if there is one summary or one takeaway that you would like for people to have, whether they watch it now or watch it later, what would that be in regards to healthy discourse and conversations?
I'll go first then. I would say that where many times and many people may think that they don't have the voice, you actually do. It might sound small, right, or sound quieter. It's not small because that implies size. It might be quieter, but you have it, and then just allowing that to come out and come forth, finding your team of people that you can practice with, if that may be it, and just know that even as you're practicing, it's going to get better and easier and easier and easier, and then you can apply that to any area of your life, in and outside of the workplace, and it'll just be all glittery from there.
I'll go next. So I would say practice being okay with disagreeing with somebody. Not everybody's going to have the same perspective. Not everybody's going to have the same worldview, the same thoughts, same experiences, as has been shared already today. And it's okay to disagree with somebody. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem in your disagreement, or that there's a problem that you don't agree with somebody else. Be okay with that. Be okay with your own perspective, and feel comfortable sharing, just like Denise was just saying too.
Amen. I love that. For me, just two thoughts. Just one is, think before you speak, and then also treat others the way that they want to be treated. So often we say treat others the way we want to be treated. Well, we have different personality types, as was talked about tonight. We have introverts and extroverts, and as we get to know people, treat them the way they want to be treated, and I think that you'll have much better communications.
I would say no, like the self check-in is probably the biggest thing. So going into a potential hard conversation, know where your emotions are at. If you need that little pick me up before that conversation, do it. For me, it's an extra cup of coffee. Probably doesn't help with the anxiety, but that's all right. That's what works. But also knowing your audience, and know that, like, there's no perfect way to just talk to every single person, right? We talk about different personalities, different types of communicators. It's not one shoe fits all, sadly. It would be wonderful if it was. But also be open-minded. I worked with somebody, my previous boss was the exact opposite personality as me. And I promise you, she taught me so much in the last 2 years. And we did a little bit of this, not really bad, but sometimes. And, you have to be empathetic. We keep saying that word, but definitely. So there you go.
Well, thank you all. Just a reminder for those of you who are watching live or watching later, we're meeting.
What about you?
Yeah,
Ellie, I was like,
I didn't want to cut you off.
I saw your face. I
but
got
I
so
did it
scared. I
anyway.
was like, did I miss somebody?
I'm curious. You got to sum it up. Like, what about for you?
You scared me so bad.
He's like, we'll just see you next week. Wait a second. The take home, a challenge, is homework.
I took a lot of notes. So one of the things that I really took away, as far as recognizing the part that you play in that conversation, recognizing like whether you are the one that's starting it or the one that's adding to it, but using that kind of as like a foundation to figure out, I guess how Lee just said, treat people how they want to be treated. And Denicia, that brings me back to what you mentioned earlier in regards to building that trust factor, but interpreting them, understanding what it is that they want in order for us to be able to build that trust. Because if you're the type of person that jokes around all the time, then that may not be how you build trust with everyone. It's going to be different with everyone. One of the other things that I picked up on is exploring what trust means. Trust is essential, and then seeing both sides of that conversation as well. I think that that's so important when it comes to healthy discourse. I think all of y'all said this part, as far as that we're not in a conversation in order to win anything, but we're in a conversation to be able to express our viewpoints. And I think that that's what healthy discourse is about. As Matthew said, if we keep practicing disagreeing, then I think that we can get to that point where we learn that we're not always going to win. Sometimes we're just going to agree to disagree. And then doing that self-check as well, like Gia said, in regards to realizing like are we really listening, or are we just listening to respond? But also at the same time, is this conversation frustrating us? Are we getting anxious due to this conversation? Because sometimes even if we start it, we don't necessarily need to finish that conversation right then and there, but let the other person know, don't just walk away. But yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah, so the next couple of Thursdays starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. Next week we're talking about comparison. Should you compare or should you not? Bum, bum, bum. And then the week after that, on January 25th, we're talking about imposter syndrome. Or are we? Bum, bum, bum. So it's going to be...
I can't wait.
The suspense is building. But thank you all so much. Those of you here, Matthew, Gia, Lee, Denicia, thank you so much. For those of you who are watching now or later, please be sure to let us know that you're watching. Please connect with all of us. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.